Bitcoin could be heading toward a price that sounds almost unbelievable. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong has made a major prediction about Bitcoin's long-term future, saying that Bitcoin could potentially reach between $300,000 and $400,000 by 2030. That is a huge prediction. But the bigger question is, what could actually push Bitcoin to those levels? Is this realistic, or is it simply another extremely bullish crypto prediction? In today's video, we'll break down Armstrong's prediction, the reasons behind his optimism, and what a $300,000 to $400,000 Bitcoin could mean for the crypto market. And before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Scheibenverse for daily crypto news and market updates. Section 1. The Big Prediction. Brian Armstrong is one of the most influential executives in the cryptocurrency industry. As the CEO of Coinbase, one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges, his comments about Bitcoin attract significant attention from investors and crypto enthusiasts. Armstrong has predicted that Bitcoin could reach somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 by 2030. To understand how massive this prediction is, imagine Bitcoin trading at $400,000. At that level, Bitcoin's total market value would be dramatically higher than it is today. This would represent a completely different phase of Bitcoin adoption. Bitcoin would no longer be viewed simply as a speculative digital asset. Instead, it could increasingly be treated as a major global financial asset. Section 2. Why is Armstrong so bullish? So why is the Coinbase CEO so optimistic? One major reason is institutional adoption. Over the past few years, Bitcoin has moved further into traditional finance. Large financial companies, asset managers, investment firms, and professional investors have increasingly entered the crypto market. The approval and growth of spot Bitcoin ETFs in the United States also created an easier way for traditional investors to gain Bitcoin exposure. Instead of opening a crypto exchange account and managing private keys themselves, investors can gain exposure through traditional financial products. That could potentially bring significantly more capital into Bitcoin. And if demand continues increasing while Bitcoin's supply remains limited, the long-term price could potentially benefit. Section 3. Bitcoin's limited supply. Another important factor is Bitcoin's supply. Bitcoin was designed with a maximum supply of 21 million coins. This scarcity is one of the main reasons Bitcoin is often compared to digital gold. Unlike traditional currencies, Bitcoin cannot simply be printed in unlimited quantities, and approximately every 4 years, Bitcoin goes through a halving event that reduces the amount of new Bitcoin entering circulation through mining rewards. The combination of limited supply and potentially increasing demand is one of the biggest arguments used by Bitcoin bulls. Of course, scarcity alone does not guarantee a higher price. There must also be sufficient demand. And that is where institutional adoption becomes extremely important. What would $300,000 Bitcoin mean? Now let's look at the numbers. If Bitcoin reaches $300,000, that would represent a massive increase compared with current levels. And if Bitcoin reaches $400,000, the move would be even more dramatic. At those prices, Bitcoin would have a market capitalization in the multi-trillion-dollar range. That would place Bitcoin among the world's largest financial assets. But there is another important point. Bitcoin doesn't necessarily need every person in the world to own it. It could potentially reach very high valuations if a relatively small percentage of global wealth begins flowing into Bitcoin. This is one of the major arguments behind long-term Bitcoin price predictions. Regulation and mainstream adoption. Another factor is regulation. For years, uncertainty around cryptocurrency regulation has been one of the biggest concerns for investors and companies. But if governments continue creating clearer rules for digital assets, institutional participation could potentially increase. Clearer regulations can make it easier for banks, investment firms, payment companies, and other large businesses to participate in the crypto economy. And if Bitcoin becomes more integrated with the traditional financial system, its potential investor base could become much larger. However, regulation can also create challenges. Governments around the world may introduce different rules, taxes, reporting requirements, and restrictions. So regulation is not automatically bullish. The details will matter. Could Bitcoin really hit $400,000? Now comes the most important question. Could Bitcoin really reach $400,000 by 2030? The answer is, it is possible, but nobody can guarantee it. Bitcoin has historically experienced huge rallies, but it has also experienced massive crashes. The crypto market remains highly volatile. A prediction of $300,000 or $400,000 should therefore be viewed as a long-term possibility rather than a guaranteed target. There are several things that could push Bitcoin higher. Institutional demand could increase. Global adoption could continue. Bitcoin ETFs could attract more capital. Companies and countries could potentially increase their Bitcoin holdings, and investors could increasingly view Bitcoin as a hedge against currency debasement and inflation. But there are also serious risks. Global economic conditions could change. Interest rates could remain high. Regulatory restrictions could increase. Institutional demand could slow down, and Bitcoin could experience another major market correction. The bigger picture. What makes Armstrong's prediction particularly interesting is the timeline. He's not saying Bitcoin will necessarily reach $400,000 tomorrow. The prediction is looking toward 2030. That gives Bitcoin several years to potentially mature as an asset class. By 2030, the cryptocurrency industry could look completely different. We could see more Bitcoin ETFs, more institutional products, greater integration with banks and payment networks, and potentially even greater adoption by governments and corporations. But nobody knows exactly what the crypto market will look like 4 years from now. That is why investors should focus not only on price predictions, but also on the underlying developments. Brian Armstrong's $300,000 to $400,000 Bitcoin prediction for 2030 is certainly one of the more aggressive long-term forecasts coming from a major crypto industry executive. If Bitcoin reaches those levels, it would represent a massive transformation in the global financial landscape. But remember, predictions are not guarantees. Bitcoin remains a highly volatile asset, and the road to any major price target could include huge rallies, deep corrections, and unexpected events. The real question is not simply whether Bitcoin can reach $400,000. The bigger question is whether Bitcoin can continue becoming a mainstream global financial asset. And that is something we will continue watching here on Shabanverse. What do you think? Can Bitcoin reach $300,000 or even $400,000 by 2030? Let me know your Bitcoin price target in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to Shabanverse, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next crypto update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.